Well, should we get started and people filter in?
Sure.
All right. All right, everybody. So, hello and welcome. We're going to do a brief introduction about the background of equinal, the software itself, how it came to be. I'll let Mark talk to a lot of it, and then I'll run you all through a demo of the software since you may or may not have seen it. As I told some of you, I'll run through it fairly quickly, so we're not bored, but there will be time at the end for a Q&A. And I'll also be around for the whole convention, so if anybody has specific questions or wants a deeper demo or talk about how to set up, say, a limited aged event, find me. Okay?
So basically, we launched in 2020. We had been talking, when Eric first started CHC Livescoring back in 2014, I think, we had some secretaries that started asking questions about, well, Eric's a software developer, and would he be interested in developing show software? And so, we're kind of like, yeah, that's a big task and everything else. And, we talked about it, but we never did anything. Well, then in 2020, Misty Enger from World Cutting Horse Association. How are you?
Hi, welcome.
Misty Enger from World Cutting Horse Association came to us and said that the current software that was being used by them was no longer going to be supporting the World Cutting Horse Association. They were only going to support NCHA. So they were unable to log in as of like a date. They could not start their shows. So we talked it over with them, and she was basically begging us to help her build something. And so we decided to go ahead and try it. And it was good because it was a small association. We could build it, we could work on some bugs, we could fix it and update it, and Eric did a great job with that as we went. And as we started building it, Kerry Sims from American Cutting Horse Association came and says, well, we're cut off too, we need software, and USCHA, the same thing. So they had no software, so that's when Eric started working together with all of them. In doing so, we brought back in the secretaries like Kathy Carden and Gwen Cooey and some of these other major NCHA secretaries, Karen Birdwell, that had also been interested in us developing it. And so we all kind of got together, and we then Eric reached out with NCHA. We formed a partnership with, or an agreement with them to be able to help support these other associations as well as start building the software and have that direct connection to Hub. That was the important thing. For the software to work and be reliable, it had to be connected to Hub. You can come sit anywhere, Sharon. Yeah. Well, you might be able to see the screen better if close. We're going to do
Nobody wants to sit in the front row. I don't know.
Yeah. Anywhere over there. So yeah. So we're recording this so we can send it out later. But so anyway, so Eric started building it. We did it with WCHA, and then it just kind of grew from there. And then we developed an NCHA version as well. And so that's kind of how it all started. We've been actively running shows with NCHA at the end of 2020, early 2021.
End of 20, yeah.
20, yeah. So in there. The big thing about it, some of the major things, is that it's all cloud-based. You can log into it from anywhere. Multiple users can log in, and Eric will go into that here in a little bit. It's $2 per entry, and that's the way we've done it. We kind of looked at the amount of numbers, how we can keep those costs down for everybody, and you basically pay for what you're using for. Whether you've got 20 horses that are cutting, it's going to cost you $40. Whether you've got 100 or however many you have, you can budget for that. And some shows have chosen to pass that on in the entry. Some have absorbed that in office charges. Some have gotten sponsors for it. And that's one of the big things, is that we're trying to help promote these shows as well as run the shows. And so when a show secretary adds a show onto Equinal, it automatically pops up on the upcoming events on Livescoring. So these are all shows that have been created by secretaries ahead of time, that automatically then come up on CHC Livescoring.
And each of those can be linked to the association's websites for full details.
Yeah, so basically you can click on that. If the secretary has put a URL in there, then you click on that, go directly to their website for more information. That is always available in the menu, even when a show is going on like today. There's a USCHA and an ACHA show going on today. If you click on the menu, click on upcoming events, you're going to see that screen right there. So we're trying to help also promote the shows as well as be there, to run the show. The sponsors, the way we have it set up is the printout sheets draw sheets, settlement sheets, confirmation sheets, any sheets that you print off, there is a section on there for the show logo at the top left, and also a sponsor logo at the bottom, or multiple show sponsors at the bottom. And Eric's going to show an example of that here in a minute. But that's a way that we're trying to help shows use it to create revenue for the show. So you can sell sponsorships. So hey, your logo is going to be on the bottom of all the printouts. So right there at the show, that's one way that your sponsor is getting recognized. Another way is that when your show is on live scoring and it's live, so here's an example of the PCCHA Derby last week. We incorporate all the show logos at the bottom of the page, and they scroll along. And whether you've got 2, 4, 5, 8, 20, whatever, we can set something up down there to get your sponsors noticed. The big thing about that now is that your sponsors that are either businesses or they're not at your show, they don't get to see the arena banner. They're taking your word for, hey, yeah, I've got my logos in the arena. They can log in now and actually see their logos on there. So now they're more interactive. They can actually be a part of the show and see how they're involved with the show and supporting the show. So that's a big way to help get your sponsors more recognition and get more exposure for them as well. So it's it's great for revenue generating, but also for the sponsors as well to get more exposure. An average weekend show, we ran some numbers. With live scoring, the app's been downloaded about 30,000 devices right now, and it's growing constantly. So that now, Ron, if you have your iPhone, your iPad, and whatever else, that's 3 devices for you, right? But 30,000 is pretty significant when we consider the membership of NCHA. The other thing is that because we are now doing some cowhorse events and we're doing the ropings, that those guys are also downloading our app. So now there's a lot of cross-promoting going on. And they're keen to see how their friends, their buddies are doing, at the cutting, or these guys checking on the other guys at the roping, which is leading to more views to CHC Livescoring. But an average 3-day weekend show can get anywhere from 5,000 to 15,000 views just on live scoring. So that's pretty significant, just for a weekend show, even without a webcast. The webcast part is something that we offer as an optional extra. We've got different ways of doing it. We've got the very basic version all the way up to the full produced production. We're not here to talk about all that today, but that's just something that can be added on to this. But with the $2, you get directly onto CHC Livescoring. You get directly exposed to all the audiences and let people keep up with your shows. And that's the biggest compliment or feedback that we've had is grandparents or stallion owners or owners at home are now able to kind of watch and see what's going on at that show and keep up to date with it. But it's also the lopers out in the back or saddling a horse at the trailer knowing that, hey, they've only got 2 left in that class. That even the cowboys that are bringing the cattle in for the next set, they're sitting back there going, okay, well, we got 3 horses left. It's time to get everything set up and ready. So it has a lot of different uses from a lot of different people that are wanting to use it in different ways to use it. So.
Mark, I have a question.
Yep.
Just to confirm, does the $2 cover just scoring in the names, or does that also furnish the live feed?
No, the live feed is separate. That's what I was saying. Yeah, it's just an optional extra on there. So I'm going to go on record, and I'm in the live streaming business. I don't like streaming weekend shows because, yes, it's great to see the open and the non-pro, but there's also a lot of guys schooling there sometimes. So I leave that totally up to the producer. And when they do ask me about it, I want them to say, look, I said, if your guys are coming there to school, they might not want a webcast or whatever. And not that they're getting crazy with it, but it just obviously, the judge is going to be a little bit more quicker to probably whistle them out and do that sort of thing. So it's there if you want it, but it's totally, up to the user or the show whether they want to actually stream their shows or
some
not.
of us have got, as far as contestants, we have gotten together and possibly consider sponsoring the $2.
Mm-hmm.
And for the affiliates who do not participate in it currently. And so that's why I was wanting to know what the $2 covered.
Yeah, the $2 is strictly the use of the software, and it covers everything that Equinol does. Okay. The live scoring is a separate addition to Equinol on live scoring.
Or maybe a better way to put it is all of the Equinol, and I'll go over this, is tied to live scoring. So the status of the show, the draws, the scores will go to live scoring. Whether or not it has a video or a live stream attached to it is a separate issue. We can live scoring can support it, but the actual streaming part of it is separate. If you have a video producer that can produce a live stream, we can usually kind of plug it in, But if you need one, that's when Mark comes in as far as the video services and paying for the bandwidth and the encoding and all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
it just depends
And it's
on
separate.
the level of production you want for your show. Right now I'm streaming to a private account so I can download it later with a little box. That's all it is. It's just streaming the camera feed. And that's what a lot of the weekend shows are starting to do, is just, the basic feed, because all the information is already on live scoring showing you what horse you're at. So the benefits for the shows, for the $2 per entry, and obviously the 24/7 support. I don't think there's anybody here that's currently using it, but Kathy, you can talk to any of the other secretaries. Eric and I are pretty easy to get a hold of, and we've been pretty proactive in working with any bugs or problems that come up with any of that. So,
Oh no, this is a closed meeting. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
But that's from the show standpoint. From the competitor standpoint, as you've experienced, Sharon, and that's been a big thing, is the text notifications, the ability to be able to keep up with where the show's at, that side of things has been a huge, benefit as a part of shows that do use Equinol, which is why, even some of the show secretaries that are comfortable with Fast Record, they're getting requests from some of the people that have experienced Equinol because of the added benefits that we have with our software that's fairly unique with that side of it. So that's about the shows using it. Obviously we're growing, we're adding more shows weekly, it seems like, but now we've got, I think, over 70% of the limited aged events, major limited aged events. We've got significant amount of the weekend shows that are going on, and we're not trying to force anybody to use it. It's there if you want it, but this thing was built by show secretaries for show secretaries. We didn't come in here going, this is how it's going to be, this is how you got to use it. And we're constantly making additions and changes and upgrades and new features, and that's what Eric's going to talk about here in just a minute in part of his spiel.
Okay, yeah.
There you go, your turn.
That's the sales part. This is the technical part. Okay, so basic background. Equinol is cloud-based, so it requires the internet, and it's integrated show management software. So there's nothing that you need to load onto a computer. You just need a browser, but it is tied in. So when you're using it, it will be able to make requests to ACHA to be able to check horse names and registration numbers. It gets nightly updates from NCHA, from Hub. So we have the most current up-to-date horse earnings, rider earnings, and eligibility information, as well as member status. Are they current members or not? And then as you put data into the system, it will also automatically push it out to live scoring, which we've talked about, and also to a system called my.equinal, which is for your exhibitors to sign up for free, there's no charge, and list riders or horses which they would like text alerts about. So for me as a competitor, I want a text alert every time I am riding. I may also want a text alert every time my horse is in the draw, so if my trainer is showing it and I'm not around, I still would get a notice and then could go, oh yeah, I'm gonna go watch him show. And that is something that is freely available. I'm not gonna go into the details of it, but basically they go in, they register, and they just basically pick from a list. And that text message happens automatically and is included. Okay. Also, Equinol will export electronically the NCHA show results, which allows it to go back to Hub and be imported and hopefully get everybody's data processed faster and more accurately, which makes everybody happy. Okay.
This faster cut, they're doing it after the show for some period of time, right?
Currently, the way it specifically works is there is an export option. So that the show secretary, when they are done, so they have a window of time to potentially clean up some entries, maybe check things, and I'll go over with, because you have issues with new people show up at a show, new horses. There's a period where you want to potentially have that time to clean up any data or double check it. But then they simply export it and email it off to NCHA, and hopefully at some point in time I can work with NCHA so it's just a button you push and no emails involved, and it just sits on their server. That would be ideal.
And one thing, just to circle back a little bit, with WCHA, USCHA, and ACHA, when they came to us and we built the software, they agreed to use it for all their shows, all their affiliates. What that means, it's a little bit different from NCHA, and obviously it's a smaller scale, but all their world standings, their rider earnings, their horse earnings, everything is updated the Monday morning after a Sunday show. So you can go on their website and you can see all the latest standings right there, because they're all using the one software. Everything is connected to the database, and so it's automatically there. And that's, ideally, if NCHA was using it for all the shows, there would still need to be some checking. Like Eric said, there's always going to be somebody that enters a show. We have flags set on here with eligibility, whether, if there's a horse that's not actually eligible according to NCHA Hub database, shouldn't be showing in the 5,000 novice. So there's flags that come on there, and it's just Linda would normally look at those, or the secretary before they send it to Linda would double check everything, make sure the names are right, and then Linda would double check it and then confirm and put it into NCHA's database. So, but with WCHA and those other ones, it's all automated on that side of it.
Okay. So, again, cloud-based platform. This means it runs on Windows, it runs on Macs, it runs on iPads. Your choice. Safari, I like Safari. Chrome, he likes Chrome. Internet Explorer, whatever you want to use it on. Most important thing is just to keep it current and update your browser. That's the only thing you have to update. And it does require internet connectivity. That has been a challenge for some people. I have a slide later to talk about that a little bit. But one thing to keep in mind is everything is then automatically backed up for you. If somebody drops your laptop in a water bucket, all you need to do is grab another computer, log in, and all your data is still there. Okay. It is also a multi-user system. Now, I certainly know that there are some weekend shows where the show secretary is also the announcer and checks everybody out, and sometimes, might even go in the back and, push the cows around. But if that's not the case, you can have multiple people working in the system at the same time, and that certainly is how it works at these limited aged events. So you may have one or two people in the office doing entries, with somebody else pulling results, 3 people maybe processing a checkout, and then announcers separately adding the scores. Obviously the secretary has to make them official and check them, but it's a multi-user system.
We had about 8 users logged in for the PCCHA Derby here last week doing different things.
We could probably quote, I think, Kathy on that. I know the first time PCCHA used the system, they had a record speed at reducing the lines during checkout. Everybody was super happy because of how fast it happened.
Like at P-State, we've got a practice pen outside, or 3, but one person, and then flag inside. Both of my practice people could have separate logs.
Yes, so
auto feed to upload it.
Every you may have as many accounts as you need, and then we are able to control access to what each person has. So there are basically role accounts. You can have an announcer who can enter scores. You can have someone who runs a practice pen. We call it access to charges, but they can enter stalls, they can enter flag works, they can enter cows. You can have 3 people if they have different ones, and they're all sending into the general pool, and they don't have access to do things like touch the scores or see the checkouts. And then your show secretary has access to everything. And there actually is one mode that was requested that is basically reporting only. Like if you have club officers that may want to get in and be able to run reports, but not actually touch any of the show data, like a read-only mode, there is that as well. Okay, and I can go over those briefly. All of the demo that I'm going to do is from a show secretary standpoint, but I'll kind of call out the screens that they would see is if they had limited access.
And just real quick, sorry, go ahead.
It's got to help bunch on Sunday, because one of the problems we've had is somebody checks out and they just forget about the Sunday sheet that we're manually doing. So now Judy's having to mail that nonsense.
Yeah.
So it would eliminate that completely, I would guess.
Well, it could very well, assuming you have someone at, you need someone with an iPad or a laptop at the practice pen, but then yes, they are adding them. And if someone flags their horse, walks them back to the trailer, and then goes and checks out, as soon as that person hits save on that charge, it's going to show up on their settlement when they go to check out.
And with the multiple users, what Kathy Carden does here, she's got cattle 1, 2, 3, she's got flag 1 and 2, so everybody has their own charge, And that way they keep track of how many flags Mindy put in under flag 1 and how many charges Landy put in under her ones. And so if you're paying the practice pen person per work, you can keep track of all that and see exactly. And that way also in the settlements it shows up that way. If there's a mistake made, you know kind of where to go back to track it or ask them or check with them to see what.
Ladies working the practice pen, you could see who logged
Yep,
what.
yep.
Yes, we do have full audit logging. So yes, if there's ever a question, we know which person changed which data, which is kind of key to a multi-user system. Okay, so demo time. We don't have any current users here, so I was going to call out some of the newer features that might be different, but I'll just go with it. Since this is pretty much everybody's first time. Yes? Okay. First thing to set up, I have giant pointer, so hopefully it's going to be easy to follow. And again, we're recording it, but also if you feel like you want to move closer, feel free. Everything is set up starts with an organization. An organization is your club or your affiliate. A show secretary or other users have individual logins. Then they are granted access to organizations. So let's say you're a show secretary and you do 3 or 4 clubs or affiliates. You have one login and you can access all of their data. Okay? If you have helpers, you can assign the helper only has access to one club or all of them. Okay? First thing you do is you set up all the things that you need for your organization. A lot of the things here are defaults, which can be overridden on a show level basis and then an individual class level basis. But your default show for this organization is going to be a weekend show. That's the most common show they have. They want 20 entries per set when it's doing calculations for classes, and they're going to have 2.5 cattle for entry. If they have other approved or unapproved classes, they can add them here. Besides the 35 non-pro and the 50, you might have a buckle class or herd work. Most everywhere, trash can deletes, and the plus button is going to add a new item. It's that simple, okay? I think that was a herd work class. Okay. This section is a newer feature. It is automatically creating settlements. There are 2 modes to work in the system. Every time you create a charge and an entry, it can put it into a pile of fees, and then the secretary can manually choose those fees and assign them to settlements. Kind of like picking up, tickets at a lunch counter and then deciding whose bill they go on, okay? Or the system can automatically, every time an entry or charge is entered, look at the owner information and either create or append to the settlement, and then all of your settlements are collected by owners. You still have the ability to move charges between settlements, and I'll show that a little bit later. For most people, we recommend the automatically assigning because that's easier. And the only thing to keep in mind is there's a limit. And that limit is so if you have, let's say, a show in fall and somebody forgot to pay a flag. So you got an open settlement for $15 and you go, you know what, whatever. It was a $3,000 bill. We're not worrying about the $15. It stays in the system as an open settlement. You forget about it. You go start in spring, you have that show, the system's going to go find me the open settlement. It's going to start putting their charges and their entries on that September settlement, and people forget what it is. So this is just a cutoff. And it should basically be tuned to how frequently you have your shows. If you have one a month, maybe 3 weeks. If you have one a quarter or whatever, maybe longer. Okay? The defaults, again, set up your basic defaults that get inherited for your cattle fees, your office charges, etc. This is what new shows get created as. You can change it. Show charges, your flags, your cattle works, etc. Again, plus button here. Also, you can rearrange them if you need to. Okay. The first 7 of these in the charges area also become quick add buttons at the bottom. This list can be 30 things long, doesn't really matter. The users get a drop-down menu of choices, but there's quick add buttons that show up later. I'll call back to this, and so the first 7 is what matters here, okay? The system will track your individual affiliate's members, okay? You can just say you've got members, you might want to have a youth and a family membership, whatever, you can just keep creating them. And then when you edit user records, you can flag them as members and keep track of a list. There is a points tab. I'm not going to get too much into it, but there are a lot of clubs that have their own point systems separate from NCHA's or what have you. We've got everybody gets a point. We get all sorts of stuff. So for their year-end awards, we have a couple of point systems. If you have that, I'm happy to go over it, and there's some options there. On your printouts, you can upload a logo, okay? Or our demo is Big Nerd Ranch. And then the banners, which we talked about earlier, this is printed at the bottom of all of your outputs. It's also on the PDF, so if you do post them to Facebook or the websites, they're also on there as well. And that's a graphic that you can control and upload and manage. You can change it show by show, what have you. Okay?
Print them out for like to post a draw.
Print them out, post the draw, the settlement sheets that go home with everybody, what have you.
Yeah.
Okay?
And this is where I was talking about where you can either sell the sponsorship, you could have just one sponsorship to sponsor Equinol and have one logo down the bottom there. Or if you want to highlight, like we have here, 6 sponsors, 6 of your main sponsors. I mean, we're kind of limited on space, but here's a graphic. We do this for the rope horse futurities quite often. They'll put in 4 or 5 or 6 of their main sponsors down there.
Okay. Secretary or affiliate, contact information that gets printed on the settlement sheets, contact, email, what have you. The check printing, this will print checks in the 3-part voucher format. Every printer is a little bit different, so we have a simple way to nudge the positions of them and print a test page. The Access tab is going to show you who has access to that organization. Because sometimes you have a helper and then you forget, what have you. So in this particular case, we've got 2 people that have full access, basically show secretaries or show producers. And then Tom has access for score entry only. Okay. And then the last tab for organizations is billing information. It just needs an email and a credit or debit card number. Again, $2 an entry. If you run limited aged events with multiple rounds, go rounds or finals, you are only charged on the first entry. So the first go. If people walk to the herd 3 times, you're not charged $6, you're charged $2. Okay. This current system it will charge for your show and electronically send you an emailed invoice on the Thursday following your show. Again, we have a grace period in case you need to clean everything up. So your show runs Friday to Monday, it will charge on that Thursday. If for some reason your show starts on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, you will not get charged that Thursday. You have the full week until that show, to the following Thursday for that to be charged.
What system are you using to do those charges?
Stripe. Are you familiar with it's an e-commerce platform processor called Stripe. The credit cards are actually stored at Stripe, which is a fairly large and secure processor. We actually never have the credit card numbers on our systems. We just have a token that points to it.
What's the cost to do that? 2 or 3% of it?
Well, this is what we charge you, and we collect the money. But that does lead us into another future feature, and I'll get into that. But Stripe is 2.9% plus 30 cents. Okay. That's your organization setup.
And once you've set this up,
You're going to set this up once and probably forget about it.
yeah.
Maybe change your fees. If your flag has to go up or your practice cattle have to change from show to show.
Yeah.
Is there a way to pass that fee on to the client?
Which fee?
The credit card fee? Or is it in there?
Um,
Is the club paying it?
That billing is for us to bill you. But that conversation, it can go further when we talk about a future option of doing paid pre-entries down the line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't pay any fees on the $2 that you
Right,
pay
it's
us.
$2 flat.
Yeah.
We eat the fees and all that. Okay. Next section is something called events. This is also relatively new. This has no bearing or relationship to anything that you file with an NCHA paperwork. This is purely for organizational purposes and also for helping the presentation of your shows on live scoring. And this is so if you have a 4-day weekend called the July Bash or what have you, you can give it a name, upload a logo. So we're going to create one right here, and we'll just call this the June Bash. All right, and we're going to say that it starts today and it goes until Sunday. Okay, and we can give it a website address, and if we wanted a special icon, we could upload that icon here. Okay, we also can just say we're going to use our regular logo. Okay. That means that when this is shown in live scoring, it's going to be called the June Bash, and it groups all that together. Okay, that's really all it's for, except for an option for pre-entries, which I'll go over later because we don't have the show set up. So right now it wouldn't show anything. All right. When we get into shows, that's when this is going to mirror what you're used to for show applications. So I'm going to create a new show. I'm going to call it,
June Bash Day 1.
yeah, June LAE. Okay. So we're going to make it part of the June Bash. We're going to say that this is on Friday. Today is the 23rd. And we're going to make Mark judge it.
I don't know if I'm still listed on that. Yeah.
I'm HR.
Okay.
Okay. Now you have a show. This probably looks somewhat familiar. Basic information. Here's all the information that you can check off for your show application. I'm not going to fill this in right now because you probably have all seen this before. One thing that this will do is if you fill all of this in, it will pre-fill an NCHA application for you, and we do work with NCHA to update these each year so that anything that's filled in will fill in here. You can add the rest and send it in. Well, sign it and send it in, okay? If we add shows and classes, all right, we're going to make this a limited age show, and it's a standard 8%. And we're going to hit save. We don't have any classes yet. So now, let's say we want to run our 3-year-olds on Friday and our 4-year-olds on Saturday, and then we're going to have weekend shows, okay? So we go over here, we say add, I want a 3-year-old open, going to add $300. This is a small show, $125. This inherits from our show and organization setup, but we can always change this on a class-by-class basis. Okay. That's all we need there. We're going to add a 3-year-old non-pro. Same deal, 125. Oops, 300, 125. Okay, save. And I'm going to add a 4-year-old just to show you one thing. 4-year-old open, 300, 125. Save. And a 4-year-old non-pro.
And obviously with a 4-day weekend show, as you will probably know, is that you're going to have multiple show numbers for each day, each show, LAEs, weekend shows. The event tab that he set up earlier is just going to combine all those ones into one event, which is what shows up on live scoring. So this is where we're creating one of the, let's say, 4 shows that are part of it.
Right.
That's what Eric's creating now.
Right.
The LA East part, like we'll run that plus the open non-pro at the end, it'll be 2 shows.
It's 2 shows. It's 2 shows, and the reason there are 2 shows in here is to mirror how NCHA sets them up so they match with, because you need an NCHA number for your results, a show number, potentially a Senior World Tour show number, etc. Okay? So this is set up on your weekend. You're going to have 3-year-olds on Fridays and 4-year-olds on Saturdays. Okay? The worst part of this is going to be your first show. The worst part of your first show is going to be setting up your classes for the first time. After that, we can add a show. Oops, sorry, wrong button. We can go back to our show. We can add it. We can create it from a previous show. So we're going to pull this back from a May weekend show. All right, and we're going to call it June.
So essentially you set up the first day of
Number
weekend
1.
shows, classes, and then you can copy that forward onto day 2, 3, and 4, and you only have to create one. You just copy all the others over. And then even once you've copied them, you can change orders. I mean, just like we did here during the PCCHA Derby, we even changed arenas. So it's fully flexible on what you can do once things are set up. You're not locked into that schedule.
So we basically are saying, make me another show, just like the one I had in May. Again, this is your show application. Now you'll see that it's inheriting some more information from the old show. You can double check it. You can do the app. Again, it'll pre-fill it. And now you have your weekend show with 11 classes. So you click over here and they're all there. This is Friday. There is an option here called combined view. So as a show secretary running it, you don't really care that your LAE is show number whatever, and this combined view, it's going to show you, okay, on Friday we've got our 3-year-old non-pro, our 3-year-old open. Now these are in the wrong order. Each class has a little order number which you can put in. This is the first class, and this is the second class.
And this is also how you would change your schedule. Once your schedule is set, if you want to change the 3-year-old non-pro from the second class a day to the 5th class a day, you have the flexibility to move your schedule. And as soon as it's done here, it's updated.
It's updated on live scoring. Everything you do here is then updating in live scoring so that anyone watching it or looking at your show schedule, etc., can see it. The order is just for you. If you make a mistake and need to reorder, you can make something 2.1 or 2.5 or whatever. You don't have to go renumber them all. Okay? So let's look at the open. Okay? Now we want to put our entries in. Okay? First warning we have. This is just a warning. We have Senior World Tour configured in our show setup because we offer it, but we didn't enter our Senior World Tour number and that's fine, we can still run our show, but before you export the results and send them to NCHA, you better put your number in there. Okay? So we're going to add an entry. This bottom bar is basically a status or the life of your class. So when you're in setup mode, you can change things in here. When you're in accepting entries, now it's okay, ready. It's also going to lock up some of this stuff and make it so you can't edit it as a safety precaution. There is an unlock button at the bottom, okay? Once you commit this stuff, even if you are starting to run the class or what have you, you can go back and you can fix mistakes. But to avoid accidents, you have to click the unlock button. And know that if you made a mistake on an entry fee, it's going to recalculate payouts and it's going to recalculate results, but you can edit it. You're not locked in. You don't have to start over. Okay?
Just in case you have a click-happy secretary.
Or I tend to typo things a lot. So we're going to add an entry. Let's say this is the open. I'm going to put in my horse. Okay, who unfortunately doesn't show anymore, but that's okay. And we're going to put in.
So as you type horse and rider names, you can see that it auto-fills from the NCHA hub or from previous entries. It pulls those up.
Right. So it does substring matching because sometimes people sign up as, Jim and they're in database as Jimmy or whatever. So I just typed in Ben and part of his last name and I get the full Benjamin Lee as NCHA has it. It's going to give you information, the NCHA number, their active and their status, so you can see. Now this is the open, but what have you. And then their current eligibility, just so you can make sure if you have 2 John Smiths, so you're getting the right one. Is it the right town, etc. Okay? And when you're done, you click Add Entry. Okay? And when you're done, you click Done or the Close button, either or. Again, a lot of people that run weekend shows, they have the same people showing week to week. Copy entries. I want to pull them from a previous show. So here's a previous show. Here's the people that were in. All right, not everybody was there, so I'm going to hit the minus button and maybe just pick a couple, or maybe almost everyone's there because I'm copying from a Friday to a Saturday, and this person, the horse isn't going to show again. Copy selected. There they are. They're all in there. One of these entries, it's going to have a little caution symbol. You mouse over it. You probably can't see it, but what this says is horse owner is listed as somebody else. Gives you their name and their NCHA number. So that means that, okay, NCHA thinks that, this is a different owner. It's the open, but still, as a show secretary, you might want to check on that, get the papers, etc. Who wants to be in the senior? I don't want to offend anybody by making some assumptions here, so I'll offend Ben. That's it. Click the S. He's in the Senior World Tour. That's all it is.
Those
Okay.
are all editable as you go, as the shows run. During the show, you can
You set them.
update those as you go.
You can print a confirmation sheet. You can download Excel as a confirmation. I'm not going to go through all these printouts. Okay. When your entries are complete, put it into draw mode. If you are pulling chips out, draw 1, 5, 8, 7, what have you. We also have an auto draw mode for larger classes. Please check your rule book. There needs to be a certain number of horses, etc., etc. But you can auto draw it, and there is an option for avoiding back-to-back draws, which is available for limited aged events, large.
Do you have settings that'll alert you if it's too small or something like that, Eric?
That is a good option. I can see that. I don't have that now. It's up to the show secretaries. We are trying to build this to be as flexible as possible and give you warnings. We don't ever want you to be in a place where you can't run your show because of some blocking thing. But we still want to warn you so that you can fix it before the show's finished or before the data goes to NCHA or what have you. Does that all make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to click it just for ease of not having to pretend we're
And the
drawing.
avoid the back-to-back draws has been a very popular addition and approved by Ernie Butenmiller. But Kathy, you guys use that.
We used it extensively. I
Yeah.
love it, especially on our age events where we had a Don riding 10 horses and everybody. So you click that avoid back to back,
Right.
and it saves a lot of pre-checking.
You need to, truth check me, fact check me. One of the first shows that you ran Equinol through, there was, I told everyone because of the multi-user ability for multiple people to handle checkouts, there was a little bit of a decrease in the checkout lines. Was that correct?
So yeah, we went from we were checking out on 2 systems. We were using a software to run the show. We were using QuickBooks to close out the accounts, and it took forever and 10 days. And we had couches out there, we had snacks, we had drinks, we had everything we could think of. Since we have moved over to the Equinol and we are integrating with QuickBooks, they're walking in
And walking out.
checking out and walking out. It's been super easy. The girls out in practice pens each have their own logins. They put in their practices and it comes right to the office. We're good. You can make notes in there as far as, you haven't got to the settlement.
I haven't gotten the settlement yet.
Yeah.
I just we were talked about it being a multi-user system and helping people check out, and I just want to fact check that I wasn't making things up.
No, not at all. We have, right now, we run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people on it
Okay.
at one show.
At one
I said
show.
8, so I was off all.
Okay.
We don't count you.
Oh yeah, I count.
Yeah. Yeah,
Come
okay.
on.
Okay, moving from draw preview. You can click the preview to preview your draw output. This is for you to look at, nobody else. As in, it's not public information yet, okay? When you go to draw official, that's when you have to think about it, okay? So this is what it looks like, okay? And again, an example of an output, you got your logos at the bottom, and if this would download, your banners are at the top. We're cut off here a little bit. When you go to draw official, that draw now goes to live scoring.
Now the
So
text messages have gone out.
The public can see it, and anyone who is subscribed to text messages, the text messages will go out to their phone. If there is a mistake, if there is a reason to draw somebody in, if for whatever reason you have to go back to draw mode and fix something, change the sets, okay? People will not get multiple text messages. They get one, so that you don't have to feel that you're spamming everybody if you touch it. But if something happens and you had to draw somebody out or there was a mistake or an out, they won't get a text message about it. You just need to know that, okay?
There's also
Draw 'em in,
confirmation.
they're not-
If you draw them in, they'll get a text message because they're new.
That
But
one
if they've
person-
already gotten one, it's not going to like resend it and say, yeah, you're still draw 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's
If you,
also, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you delete somebody and re-add them, they'll get a text message again,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Okay.
And then prior to the draw, if you're doing an aged event or something and you want to print a confirmation sheet, that's also on there, and that's a PDF,
Yep.
and you can put that on a website or wherever.
So then once draw is official, you can print the draws, download the Excels. We do judges cards, announcer sheets, etc. Okay. Once it's active, this is where you can enter the scores. Your announcers can enter scores. This part is hidden or not editable by any of your announcers, and you just enter your scores. So I'm going to go real quick and put in a 60 and put in a 71 and put in a 72 and put in a.
And for each judge, you'll see a separate score column. So as if this was a 3-judge show or a 5-judge show, you would see 5 rows of scores. So with the judges' tablets, when they come up, you'll see those scores come in. And so what we were doing with PCCHA Derby last week, we'd put in each individual judge's score and put those in. And then during an aged event, you can print out a audit trail for the judge's monitor that he can then take, and it shows the hours on there, so he knows exactly what he has to review. That he doesn't have to write those scores down anymore. It's all done through the system.
If you're watching while I did that, and whenever you're making changes in the system, it does autosave. So oftentimes next to or near where you're writing, it's going to put a little green check mark. That means that change has autosaved. There's also this little green icon up here. That means your internet connection is good. If for any reason this goes as a caution symbol or a red, that means, hey, check your internet connection so you're not working here and suddenly offline. It's basically an offline mode. Okay? So that's our score. As we do these scores, they would have all gone to live scoring. And when you're done, score's official. And then you can print your results.
Once scores are made official on here, it also automatically puts all the payouts on live scoring, so that during weekend shows, they can see exactly what they've won there before they even start the next class. So it does save a lot of phone calls to the secretaries, or people asking, well, how much did I win, or how much did he win, or whatever. And even the people at home can now see.
Right.
The owners can see it at the same time that the riders find out.
Right. So then there's your results sheets, and then here's your senior world tour with one loan.
So however many classes you have, it'll print out a results sheet for each class or subclass.
Okay. All right. So there, and basically rinse and repeat. Run your full day. Charges for the practice pen. As I said, your first couple will show up down here as quick buttons. I want a flag. I'm going to set that to me. If I could spell my name, it would help. You can set horse and trainer rider if you want to, so that there's extra information there. As long as it's got an owner, it's good. You have a set of notes for your practice pen person to put in there if they need to. You can change it, but it automatically is set to a flag, but then there are other choices. Okay. Let's say I had 2 flags because whatever reason. Okay. And hit
And
save.
that's the notes part that Kathy was talking about down there. We could say 3-year-old bay gelding, or whatever.
Sometimes I put barn names in there just so the trainer has a reference. Those notes will carry through to the settlement sheet. So if a trainer goes in and you just put 5 flags, they could just put in like whatever, cat and smoke and Nita or whatever. Okay.
So Eric, if you had, go ahead and add a horse and a trainer.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this was kind of a cool feature. Go ahead and save that.
Yes.
And
Got it.
add another charge.
Got another flag. Now we have the same, so we can set that to Ben and owner and pick a different horse. So it remembers. So if you're working the practice pen, you got a trainer that comes in with 5 horses to work in a row with different owners, you can just do trainer, owner, or 4 of the same.
And the way that the practice pen that we've seen, the way that they use it, the people out there, is that they'll still work off their sheet and make sure, and that's their order, because a lot of times people will sign up, so you don't want to put them in the system, and then all of a sudden they don't show up and you forget to go back and delete them. But on the sheet, you're crossing them off, you're doing all that, and then when they kind of get a break, that's when they go back and get their sheet, and that's why that little tool right there is handy, because Adan just worked 5 head, or multiple ones, same owner. they can do all that as they go. But they normally don't get entered into the system until they've actually worked. This is not used as a sign-up sheet. It's used as a confirmation like these ones that are actually worked. And that way they can cross them out on there. Susie Watson, who helped develop this side of it, does a lot of practice pens. She even, just pull up a charge again there, Eric. She even puts in the charge number. The work
She
number
has a
off
work
her
number
sheet.
of the day, whatever. This
You
is
know,
the
and that's
third,
just something
eighth.
she does.
It's
A
optional.
lot of people don't. It's totally up to you. But that way, if there's ever a dispute on that charge, she can pull her hard copy sheet out and see that it was work number 35 on that day, and see that it was crossed out, but yet it was charged. Oh yeah, that shouldn't have been charged. So it's kind of a little safety check for her, but most people just use it as they do.
Can you pre-enter, like my wife does all the stalls for hair, can she pre-enter all those and then
Yep.
also put in, everybody's going, what the heck are my stalls?
Yes. So
Kathy is laughing. Yeah.
Yes, you can put all the stalls in there. When I get to reporting, I mean, I don't want to dive deep into reporting, but you and I could sit there later. There are some ways in the reporting to have the reporting basically generate stall lists for you, group them by trainer if you'd like. So it will show you the total number of stalls per trainer with the owners and the horses listed, etc.
Is that post somewhere to CHC or no?
No, but it will generate as a PDF document, which you can post on a website or Facebook or what have you. So you can do stall confirmations that way, etc. Okay?
You're going to be in charge of training my wife that she sucks them.
We can do that.
We defer to Kathy.
Okay, these charges, when they're entered, if I had just access to charges, I just see the charges menu. I see all of these things. I can print out sign-up sheets and I can do a report of the charges that I've entered, but that's it. The only thing that would be different is once it's added to a settlement sheet and settled out, there's a little icon and it locks them out. So your charges person, once the show secretary has checked somebody out, can't go back and edit those charges. Make sense? Okay. So then the part everyone's...
We could add a sponsorship too, Jim, here. If somebody says, I'm going to pay Judy at the show, my wife's doing sponsors too, we could put that in as a charge so that they don't forget.
Yep.
Yes.
Dinner tickets, whatever, raffle tickets, you can put anything in there as a charge. You know, whatever you set up in the default will automatically pop up in the charges screen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So here now is our checkout with our settlements. Based on the entries that we did, here's all the owners. Okay. I'm going to find mine in here. We double click on it. All right. We've got our entry fee. We've got our payouts. We've got our flags that have automatically been added. Okay. To your point, if we need to add a charge, we have our options again from our organization setup. But if you need something custom, I want one, sponsorship. $500. I agree. It would add right there.
So that's how the weekend shows that don't have a practice pen person but have an honor system out by the flag with a sign-up sheet. Now you come check out. How many flags did you have? 5. Okay, so now you can add them at settlement time when they're checking out.
Okay. We have an option for net out. If you want to use it, some people love it, some people hate it. It's an option. Click on net out. Payouts applied. They owe $34. They don't get a check. They just write you a check for $34. You don't want to do that and you want to trade checks, then here's your check. New check.
Why wouldn't you want to do that, Eric?
From an accounting standpoint, it is better to trade money and have all of the transactions there. And I agree with that as a former club treasurer for many years. As a cutter on the road, I loved when people netted me out because I put my winnings checks in my pocket or had to mail them home. The option is there. I see both sides.
Or if you have somebody that's iffy and you're not sure they're checking their cash.
Fair enough.
Didn't want to go there, but yes.
Can we selectively use this based on that comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, you either check or do not check that box.
This is just like the NCHA rule book. Every rule or every part that we have in here has a name behind it somewhere. You know, we have Della buttons, we have Kathy buttons, we have.
No, we're not calling them
There's
that.
a little bit of, no, not those ones, but I mean, we do have buttons on there, and I mean, they all have a purpose. That's why they're on there.
Right.
You know.
So then this is going to print your check. This is the one piece that lines up with your printer because it has to match your check forms, and that's what it's going to look like. 3-part vouchers. Okay. Internal notes, you can put notes on this settlement sheet. This is for you. This person's iffy.
Yeah.
Force them to net out. Memo, if you need to put a memo on there for whatever reason, this gets printed on the settlement sheet. So there's a record of it, whatever that needs to be.
W9.
Okay. W9 information, this is a relatively new feature. You can check the box. That means you've got a W9 on file for this person. We also have an option for payout names. So if, like, say for me, I would like the checks written to Wanderlust Farm, the payout information will keep track of the difference. You might have a W9 for Eric Schmoyer, but now you don't have a W9 for Wanderlust Farms. So it'll flag it and say, hey, but it associates those extra names with that member. So if you have a husband and wife and they're checking out and whatever, you may end up having to write the Wanderlust Farms in both records because it's associated with a member, but you still can do that. And then we're going to print a settlement sheet. We can sort them by date and horse, or by horses then date. This was a big, whatever. Choices.
It's a big deal on trainers to go by horses.
I agree. I agree.
The non-posing
Yeah.
athletes to go by date.
Yeah, I like to think about it by date. What did I do on Friday, Saturday, Sunday? I understand. So then this is what your settlement sheet's going to look like. Again, real basic. Your logo's at the top. It's going to show the dates. We got entry fees. We've got some payouts. We've got some flags. Here we go. Okay?
Paid with check number.
Paid with check number, etc. Okay? We paid you with this. The fees are still open. So, Kathy? Was there a question or? Oh, no. Okay. All right. So then we owe 348. We're just going to put it in here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 348. Okay. There is this button here called Forced as Closed Paid. If we save this, it's going to, assuming I could spell everything correctly, automatically mark it as paid because I put in the correct, paid check number 1, 2, 3, 4. If you ever have a settlement that's off by a couple of cents and you don't want to deal with it, whatever, that's what this forced closed paid is. It's like, just mark it paid, even though it doesn't balance, just leave me alone. Again, small shows, they do that a lot. If you've got an accountant looking over your books, they're going to drive you crazy because it's going to be 3 cents off and they've got to fix it. Okay. I'm not going to go over the mode where you want to hold things in. If there's a show secretary that wants to do that without auto creation of settlements, I can certainly show how that works separately. But that is, these days, not our recommended way of doing it. Though when you are here, if you have, say, a trainer that is going to be paying out, you have a couple of options. So if you have someone who is paying out for 3 different owners, you can select them and you have choices. You can combine them onto one settlement. You can print all 3 of them at one shot. You also can print the settlements plus a summary, and you can apply one payment to multiple settlements. So if the workflow here is you have a trainer that wants, let's say they've got 3 customers, 3 owners. They have 3 settlements, one for each of the owners. They're going to write you one check. The total bill of all of them is $3,000. Simple math. Each of them had $1,000 in entry fees. You write one check, it will take that $3,000, apply it to the first one, apply it to the second one, with whatever's remaining all the way down. Okay? And then you can print the settlements and a summary, and it basically will print out settlement, 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 and for the trainer, it will print something like this. Date, customer name, the totals, the payouts, and their status, open or paid. Okay. This area is for unassigned fees and charges. If you're on, again, if you're on the automatic section, shouldn't matter. But if for some reason this person does not want this on their settlement sheet, you hit that minus button, that removes it, and it will pop up over here. And now you can say, oh, let's reassign that. I want this to go over on this settlement sheet. Add to, and it's just going to move it over. And that way you can do them in groups.
And we can do it. There's a lot in here, obviously.
There's a lot of complexity in here. There's buttons to like select groups and so there. We could be here for a 3-hour session. When someone is onboarded, if it's their first time, depending if Mark or I could get to the show, that's ideal. Worst case, we'll do a Zoom, walk them through it. Because it's multi-user, we can log in and also help them or double check their show setups and stuff like that. And the reality of it is shows run on weekends. Our goal is to provide support and remain available while you're running your shows. So if you have problems on a Sunday afternoon, we'll be available to help you out.
And we can remote directly into your show or you know, other, I mean, Kathy's done that for other shows as well, where they say, hey, we need help, we want Kathy to kind of see what we're doing, and we'll give her a login, she can remote into your show and help you and see exactly what you're seeing or see any issues or whatever. So that's the nice part about it being the way it is, to where anybody can come in and jump in and help you if you need help at any time with a situation you're having. So.
I'm going to skip reports for right now and jump over the checkbook. As the check that you wrote as part of settlement is for the winnings, but you also are going to be writing checks for your cattle and your judges, what have you. If you can write them out of this system, simply create a new check, number, payee, etc. If you put in a D or the word debit for the check number, it will mark it as a debit, so you can track things that you may have used a club debit card for rather than write original checks, okay? And you can, again, search this by payee or order it by numbers and print a check register. Pretty straightforward. The lookup section. This is looking up Equinol's member and horse database, okay? So for riders, and again, it does substring matching, so we can do like E and SCHM, and it's going to search. All right, if you need to, you find me. Here's the information that we have. We cannot get email address or address information from NCHA for privacy reasons. This is the correct answer. So if this is not filled out, you need to manage it for your users. I will get back into this a little bit about siloed, or what I should say is not siloed data, but fill out addresses. Because I set up in the organization the options for members, you can choose whether this person is a member or not, and if you set other ones like youth or family or lifetime, they're there. There is also a new feature called entry report. This will list, because I didn't enter, I have to put it, the first time I did the non-pro in my practice demo. You can do an entry report, and that is going to list all of the entries that person has had within your organization. Okay? This is helpful if you realize you made a mistake and chose the wrong person or the wrong horse and need to go back and fix a couple of entries. All right, it's going to show you, and then you can double click them and jump right to those classes and entries to fix them. Okay.
Eric, is that based per show? Is that per show?
It is per organization.
Okay, so it's.
So that particular one showed some past history. I mean,
Yep.
yeah, that's a new feature. We may have to put some date ranges on that as well, but for now, it's just a long list and sorted by date. Okay.
Will it go all the way back to the very first time?
It will go all the way back to the very first time that you showed with this software. Okay. That is available for horses as well.
So that's where Kathy, with the one with win some cash, we had that issue over there with the typo in that one. You could go here, if you'd already entered it wrong like 4 times or something, instead of trying to figure out, okay, what class was that to go back to fix it, you go here and you see them all right there and you just click on it and edit it right there and go from there. So it saves a bit of time. If you realize after you've already made the mistake multiple times, it's a quick way to go back and fix it.
If you set riders, owners, members, as part of your club membership, you can get a list of just those members and be able to download them with CSV, including addresses and emails to help you with mailing out things, what have you. Okay, that information is only visible to you, to your organization. Okay. One last tab over here is the added recently tab. We didn't go over that, but if you're going to run limited aged events, especially if it's in the early part of the year, you're going to get horses that are not in NCHA system. You're going to have to add them. When you add the horse, you can do it right from the entry screen. It will check ACHA. So the first thing that happens is you type the name in and you get the screen to check it. It's going to either say, hey, their registration number is this, and here's their date and mare or stallion. You might want to just double check and make sure you got spelling right, that you're not the wrong horse. But if it's a paint or an app, no, you're just going to have to manually say, nope, it's not. Okay. But anything that you add, or any new member, say someone shows up and isn't an NCHA member, they're riding in the 2 because they're borrowing a horse, and you add them, it's going to show up in this added recently. It's 2 weeks. So that is going to be a list for you as a show secretary to go, hey, got to make sure I send these transfer papers in. Hey, maybe I want to double check these, make sure I got an NCHA membership from somebody, etc. Okay.
I'm sure the lookup for the owners, like showing all the horses owned by.
Yes. So one thing with horses is obviously we can search for horses. We can also search by owner name. This also works when you're doing entries. If the owner or the loper cannot remember or spell the horse's name, at least if they know the owner, you can search it in and go down the list. Well, is this Miss Nita, or is this Ruby, or is this? Okay. Reports. Last piece. I'm not going to go through all of the reports. We have income and expenses. We have income and expenses by class. It basically just groups them, 50,000 amateur, 35 non-pro, etc. We have a payments report. This would show you all of your checks. This is basically to reconcile your deposits. Checks, cash, credit cards. Most everything is either exportable into CSV or printable. A collections report, basically. Show me all my open settlements if I have to mail these out or do something with someone. Your charges report. This is where we get into, there's a lot of flexibility here. So you could do something like include only stalls, and then group it by rider or trainer, and then we want a detail by group, and we only want the quantities because we don't want to publish how much our stalls cost, and then print. This isn't going to be interesting because we don't have any stalls in here, but well, let me see what happens. It's probably going to give me no data. But it would basically be a stall list for you. And so there's a lot of flexibility in a lot of these reports that we can do it.
What that one does is it gives you the name of every person. So Teresa has 3 stalls, you have 2 stalls, and you both ride for the Dawn, and then Dawn has 10 stalls at the bottom. So yeah, it gives whoever, so that way a Dawn can look, if you post that up on the website, you can look and say, well, Teresa has 3 horses, so you need to fix that. But that way it gets rid of just him thinking he's got 20 stalls and not realizing that you are stalling with him as well. So it's a cool report.
Okay.
It's
Plus tax stalls and feed stalls and
Yeah,
all that.
it's
Yeah.
Yeah. If you define separate ones, like I have a very simplistic version here, but yes, you can have stalls, turnback stalls, tax stalls, whatever.
And you said you can type in the stall numbers there,
You can, yes.
so that could be looked up for stall map kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Report question.
Yes.
You're doing special prizes, like we're gonna do high money earners, sort of count open to 25.
Perfect. Standings report. Next
Can you
report.
customize that?
You can customize it. So we have calculations by earnings, points by association rules, as in NCHA, points by something called everyone gets a point. So if there's 12 horses in the class, no matter what, the last person gets a 1 and the first person gets 12 points. Club point specific, that's the whole going back to the organization, and if you have your own point system for your club, you can set them up, or scores. And then we can include entries with no winnings or no points, because sometimes it matters whether or not they've shown 3 times or something like that. And you can limit to some subclass code. So if everybody's in some sort of extra subclass or eligible, like for whatever reason, sometimes I've been in places where the Pennsylvania club would have a special incentive only for people that were from Pennsylvania and not outside of it or whatever. So there's some flexibility in there. Obviously, if you have a need, let me know. This is a tool for you guys. And then there is an earnings report. This is just sums earnings by horses or rider for a particular period of time across all classes. Something that was requested. Again, if sometimes they were giving out the top amateur money earner for the weekend. Didn't matter if they were in the 15 or the 50 or whatever. So it does it across classes.
You could print that like at the end of every day to encourage them to show.
Sure, print it and post it.
I get a lot of feedback from the trainers, because they're always wanting to know how much did I win, and I mean, you can print that and see it, or at the shows. I did it after the non-pro. I can't remember if we posted the PCCHA one yet or not, but we'll often post top 15 riders, owners, and horses, and everybody loves those reports and seeing that, to see how people did. So it's handy to kind of keep track of that sort of thing.
And then you can change the date range?
You can change all the date ranges. So you can have that date range cover standings for your club for the whole year, or it could just be a weekend, or maybe you have a series that's happening from June to August for over 3 shows. You can change that date range.
And that ties back into, Ron, like what we were saying with WCHA and USCHA. I mean, you set it to January 1st to December, and then as the year goes on, it's pulling all the earnings just for that year. Or you can set it back for 10 years. I mean, whatever.
You can do it across multiple clubs.
No. The data is separated for the show, or
Even the same show secretary?
yes, because of the way that the system's structured.
I get that.
Now, if there's a need for that, I can think of a way to do that, but
Like we run a shootout class for the 50, basically the amateur riders at our show, but it tracks my shows
And somebody else.
Chris's shows.
there's if it's the same show secretary who would have access to that data, there's a way we could do a multi-club standings report. It's possible. It's just the feature isn't there in the system, but the data is there. NCHA reports, you've probably seen these before. Exports them as PDFs, and then this is also where we have the export to download. Last piece down here, data export. These are all some of the same things, but more at a detail level. So if you want to download your register, and we have specific formats that have been predetermined for like QuickBooks for desktop or QuickBooks Online. The challenge, I will tell you right off the bat, the challenge with importing data from this system into QuickBooks or what have you is that everything in our system is keyed by how that member appears in the NCHA database as far as their names. Most people that have existing QuickBooks data have not entered their vendors or their payees or what have you, or their customers as those names. They might have it as Schmoyer, Eric, or what have you. So if you're starting fresh, import it and you're fine. Otherwise, you're going to have to do some data cleanup. And so far, everyone who's talked to me has not found that data cleanup to be worthwhile. But we are looking at options to be able for you to tag every member record with an alternate QuickBooks name, but that's somewhat labor intensive. So I'm open to discussions, but the data is here. Most people have decided to download the data, import it, and when it has a name, I don't match it, they just fix it as they import it. I don't want to demo that here, but if anybody does use QuickBooks and wants further in, we can do a deep dive. It's possible. We're exporting into QuickBooks formats for a lot of these things. Last thing I want to touch is 1099 data. basically, yes, anything over $600, it does a report for you, exports into a CSV document. We do not store the tax IDs here. You have to have the tax IDs off of the W-9s, but we have the addresses and the totals and everything else. And that format, once you put the tax IDs, is in something that's suitable for a lot of these online 1099 issuing services. So.
Eric, the 1099s, if they net out, does it corrects for that?
No, if they net out, it does it by the amount of checks that you have written to them. So not their winnings, it is the 1099 is on the net amount by request, and I'm on the fence, but it's a choice. If that becomes an issue, it's obviously could be an option. And I'm gonna kind of stop the demo here. I want to cover a few other points, but I'd like to back up and, as a software developer for my life, I've always written software that is stuff that I want to use. And if I was a show secretary, these are the kinds of things that I would want to use, and the features, like as an exhibitor, I wanted text messages and things like that. But ultimately, this software is for the affiliates and for the show secretaries. So you guys need to tell me what you want, and we'll build it. There are lots of features in here that I'm like, I don't know if that's such a great idea, but a lot of people like it, so let's put it in there. As long as it doesn't impact somebody else, as long as that option exists. I don't want to create it with, like, every time you do something you have to check 3 boxes or choose a whole lot of options. But I'm hoping this is going to grow with a lot more input from everybody else, and we can all sort of create it together. So that's why, I'm saying requests from people. If it's possible, we'll build it. Okay. Are there any specific questions on the demo that I've done so far? I've got a couple slides I want to cover, and then I'm going to open it up to general Q&A. Okay. Yes?
I couldn't see on the settlement. Do you have the ability in there to take some cash, some check?
Yes. In the settlements, let's do a checkout here. Where is the one here? So I simply had it set as paid here, but let's say if this was cash, okay, I could put in $100 and then only write in the check for $245. That's basically what it. These, put it in as many lines as you need, And this may come into play in places where someone is prepaying entries, but you want to keep everything together on one settlement. So the prepay was credit card, and then when they're checking out, they're going to write you another check or give you cash for things like flags or stalls or whatever. Maybe they went in a rerun class that wasn't a pre-entry or something. Okay?
And you can search, as you're going with the settling out, you can search by all settlements, paid settlements, open settlements, so you can see who's still got to pay out, so you can just see that list. So, yeah, however you want to use that, or by date, you can search all multiple.
Pre-entering, they're gonna go through y'all's, we used a different system to do that last year. They're gonna do this, so it'll update.
So let's hold that question, if you don't mind, for 1 second. Okay, so I just recap of recent updates. The events is new. The pre-entry screen, which I did not go into, but basically when you have an event, it shows you Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all your classes with a bunch of check boxes. So you can say, I want to enter Miss Nita and Eric in the non-pro on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Done. Okay?
Gelding, subclasses,
Everything.
seniors, everything. So basically, any rider, any combination of entries for that horse and rider, you can check off all from one screen.
Right. It kind of mirrored after, Arizona, when I was showing out there, they would have the sign-up sheets, and I'd write my name, and I'd check off which days I was showing at, instead of going every day and just filling out the long clipboard. So it's kind of mirrored after that. Settlements, the auto creation, that's a relatively new feature. Again, this slide is geared more for existing Equinol users that I want to refresh that may have not used it in a while. The W-9 status tracking and the membership lists, the ability to set those and then download them, that's a relatively new feature. Okay. Internet access. We have had questions from people about, I'm doing a ranch cutting in the middle of nowhere and I don't have any internet. Cellular hotspots are a good option. we built this software to work under slow internet connections. I am a crazy nomad. I work off tethered iPhones or satellite internet almost all the time. This transfers as little data as humanly possible to keep it functional over a slow connection. If you can do it to tether off your iPhone or get a MiFi, that's probably the easiest if there's cell reception. If the cell reception is kind of mediocre, you may want to think about something called a WeBoost or a cellular signal booster. They can be anywhere from like $300 to $600, and that can turn like 1 bar of service into 3 or 4 bars of service depending on where you are, especially in cases where the outside of the building, roof, whatever, has decent coverage and the inside is terrible. You basically run an antenna outside and then run this little box that works as a repeater on the inside. This will not make no cell service or almost no cell service work, but it'll take, mediocre to make it good. And another option to consider is, and I use this is a Starlink satellite internet. They have a plan now for mobile or RV. It's $150 a month. It works in the middle of Death Valley. It works in the middle of Baja, Mexico. It works in the middle of the Caribbean on a sailboat. And that option, if you don't run shows all the time or need it infrequently, will allow you to run it for a month and then turn it off, and then turn it back on again 3-4 months later. You have to pay for a month at a time, but you don't have to continue paying it if you're not using it. Your regular Starlink is usually fixed to a location and is a little bit cheaper, but the mobile or RV option is what you might want if you are carrying your internet around to different locations or different ranches.
And we can help if you come across a location that doesn't have good, and you can't figure out a way to get it to work there. Call us, contact me, contact Eric, and we can help troubleshoot what we need for that area. And hopefully get you hooked up.
The biggest challenge I see at some places is you have okay internet and then everybody gives you or asks you for the Wi-Fi password, and then suddenly you are competing with everyone updating their Instagram and checking their Twitter and
watching live scoring.
Watching live scoring. So don't do that. If it's a precious commodity, hoard it like a dragon. We kind of went over pricing, but I just wanted to reiterate it. $2 an entry for multi-rounds. It is just the first entry. It's automatically charged to a credit or a debit card after a grace period. And there are opportunities that we've built in to offset some of those costs. We absolutely realize that for large shows, this may cost a little bit more than other solutions, but we think we're trying to offer a lot more in terms of the services to the exhibitors. With the logos, with the visibility on live scoring, with the advantage of the text messages for all the exhibitors. I hope that some of that will cut down on the poor show secretaries I have seen who seem to try and run a show while they are answering call after call. Where are you at? How many are in the 50? How many are in the open? What time do you think this is going to go?
That's the best one.
It's all on live scoring. You do the math. Trainers take 5 minutes. Amateurs take 3.
Fresh cattle rerun.
Yes.
Pre-settled cattle.
Okay. We have been discussing some new features. Obviously, we're open to any suggestions that people have, but 3 things that I wanted to throw out. Online entries. We want to look at being able to have basically a sign-up sheet for exhibitors that they can do on their phone. This is not pre-entry checkout. This is I'm at the venue or I'm driving to the venue and I want to put myself in the 50 and being able to do that. We want to, basically get feedback. How many show secretaries thinks this is awesome? How many people say absolutely no way, that's going to drive me crazy? Our goal would be to, 1, require that there are no exceptions. Like you can't, if the horse isn't eligible or the owners don't match or something, go see the show secretary, sign up on the clipboard because you're going to have to see him anyway. And the second one would be when it comes in, we would have to put some type of special flag on it so you see it as unapproved or pending or something, and have an action that says, oh, okay, I know about that, and go ahead and add them back. And then we have to see if we should send them an email, send them a text back. Like, we want to work that out. But the general idea of basically being able to do something on their phone instead of write it on a clipboard, is that a good idea or not? So think about that, give us feedback. I think it's great, but I mean, I work in the internet for way too long. There's going to be somebody who's going to try and put Austin Shepherd in the 2,000 limit rider on Smart Little Lena just to be funny. Hopefully it doesn't happen enough to be annoying.
We had a system with a super manual that was on our website. Nick Johnson helped me with it, that would feed that data to Judy, which worked great, but it's not in the same system.
No, yeah, this would only work if they do it and it shows up on a screen and you have to click a button and say approved or whatever, edit it. I don't know. I mean, I will not be surprised at the number of people that misspell their own name or pick the wrong horse for themselves. I'm just telling you. I will.
Where we're going with this is, I just came back from Australia and they have a system over there called iCompete, and it has some really cool features. It has some issues. They've approached us about coming over there and developing show software. I'm not sure what we're going to do yet, but the one thing that I did learn from what they have right now is that the users have their own accounts. So just like the my.equinal accounts that we have now, where you sign up, where you get your text message alerts for these horses, these riders. Our vision is to hopefully one day be able to enter from that screen. So this rider, that horse, enter the 50 am at that show. But then they also have their own account on that app to show all the entries that they've had throughout the year, all the money that they've won throughout the year. It's like a bank statement showing all the entries and all the money that they've won. So that's ultimately, a wish list item, but where we could eventually end up with this pre-entry part, and this is the first stage of it, doing it through the show secretary to have them approve it. It's a virtual clipboard, so to speak, sign-up sheet.
Yeah.
Do they go right into that class then? Or-
They would. Well, that's the part that I think they should go right into the system and be as an entry, but they should somehow be flagged as different until you say yes, that this is okay, or I acknowledge it, or something.
And it might be like that other sheet where where you're pulling entries from the previous day. So Teresa, on your end, you might see the open. Here's all the entries that have been entered. And you just hit the all, which check marks all of them and then bumps them straight in. Or, hey, no, this one's flagged, I need to look at this one, or check this one, or call them. But you would be ultimately the last person to actually put them into the class before you do a draw.
I mean, we could have somebody who normally goes in the 50 accidentally put themselves in the open. And you're going to look at that and you're like, yeah, I don't think that's the right class. And so, yeah.
And then from that, once you put them into that class, our vision is that they would then get a text notification saying your entry has been accepted and entered into the open. So they have confirmation, I'm in the open, or I'm in the 4-year-old open, limited, gelding, senior, whatever. So they would get a confirmation that you have now put them into the class.
So that is the first thing that we would like to work on. Settlement would happen the same way. They still have to write you a check at the end of the day or settle up with you or what have you. The second stage of that would be being able to do a full pre-entry where they can enter and prepay online. And that's where we would get into having each of the affiliates have to get we would have to coordinate, because we do not want to collect money from cutters and then give it to you, on your behalf, and then give it to you. We would want it to come directly to your payment processing vendor. At this point in time, I would recommend Stripe, because they're easy to work with and their fees are low. We have people that they might take it from authorized.net, they might take PayPal, there's a lot of options. But if we could all decide on one or maybe two, then we can streamline it and we can help people that don't have it get those accounts. Stripe, usually once you're approved and set up, will deposit money within like 4 days. So it's not same day, but if you're doing pre-entries ahead of time, that's not a huge deal. But that's kind of a larger scope conversation, but that I think is something everybody wants. And that would allow anybody who chooses to be able to take pre-entries and not have to pay for custom programming on their website and 2 different systems. And because one of the things that we looked at was people have pre-entry systems, maybe we can just build importers to import the data so they don't have to rekey it. Well, it was all over the place. And that would, each of the affiliates would have to spend money with their developer, their website company to try and add that feature. So instead, I think it might be easier to create it in such a way that they can put a link on their website. Pre-entries are here. And if it's unified and the cutters get used to it, at least we have to train them once, hopefully. So, the last thing we're considering is doing some sort of electronic judges tablets. I know they exist out there already. Some people use them. Some people hold up fingers, use walkie-talkies, whatever. But if there's enough of a need and it makes sense, we could look at doing something that would tie directly into equinal so that the score goes right through.
So the current judges' tablets go onto a screen, and then from there you sit and enter them in. Our vision, hopefully one day, is to have those tablets tied directly into equinal. When the judge types that score in, it automatically goes into equinal. So that saves a second person having to type the entries in as well, and puts it all in there directly. Obviously, that's...
They have like an iPad or something?
Yeah, the current system uses the cheapest Amazon tablets you can get. I mean, that's one thing that we're iPads, that's the bottom level, iPads. I mean, because they have better antennas, better connectivity and everything else.
They're a little more rugged. And part of that, I mean, again, going a little more into the weeds there, we probably need a way to limit access so the judges don't get bored and start surfing the internet in the middle of the show.
So you have the basic component of that already, or that's the next?
I have some prototypes, but all 3 of these are, I've got some things in my head, I've got some sample code. We want to see, before I spend a lot of effort, is there enough interest in it? Does it make sense? Are people happy with their current solutions or not?
Or is there something else more pressing?
Is there something else? And that's why I'm basically open Q&A.
Yeah.
So why couldn't you take just basically a phone, Android or whatever, and that judge would just have a keypad on it, just like they have on the current system that we use.
Jeremy has
And
that,
then
I
you type
think.
1074 and hits enter and it goes right into equinal.
That is an option. That we have to make in order to do that, we have to make a few assumptions, and we have to make a few things about discipline. One of
All work with keypad.
they can all work keypad, absolutely. All those phones would have to have internet connectivity.
Okay.
All right. Whereas if we built a custom app, potentially, and if it was, they could talk to each other without going across the internet, and then relay that information with one machine out. So if the internet failed, the judges' tablets would keep working. 2, if it's their personal phones, there is much. Okay.
No.
So yes, you need a system to do it. And then at that point in time, honestly, phones are more expensive as hardware than iPads. iPads are cheaper.
Okay, so just the little tiny iPad.
Little tiny iPad, keypad, tie it in, and somehow put it in what they call an assisted mode so they can't get out of that app.
Right.
And tie it in. And that's the goal. Yeah, that's the goal.
Like a no-brainer. God, that'd be so much easier.
I agree, but
How are you gonna handle if you have a review situation?
there would need to be, there's a keypad. There would also need to be like a button for review, and probably a few other things that would need to, be on there for the judges to flag.
So currently, the judges type in a score with the review. If they call a major penalty, they put a review in there, and so the system is our audit trail already flags the ones that are reviews, and that's how the announcer or whoever's putting the scores in, they know to put an R up there with it, or it automatically goes in there. So that's already in there and automated in there.
So when they've reviewed it and they're going to change it, do they give it to the secretary still?
The show secretary will.
Initial it?
Yeah.
Secretary is always ultimately in
And
charge.
fixes it?
Yeah, secretary. The buck stops with the secretary. She's responsible for the show. She's the one that's got to make scores official, and she is always the ones that, because it's not only what they punch into the tablet, it's what they write down. And we've had situations where they punch in one thing and write down another thing. So the show secretary is normally the last line of defense as far as correcting that, making sure that that score was what he put in, and if there's a review, changing that score in Equinol before it goes scores official, and then the payouts are put out.
Okay.
Yeah. But the judges have, like I said, that's something. It's going to take a little bit of testing and developing. But I definitely think it's doable. We just need to make sure that that there's not other things that are more pressing in the meantime that we need to be working on.
So let's go back to the online entry.
Okay.
Kind of intrigued by that.
All right.
In a perfect world, if I was wanting an online entry, I would want something on my phone, and I would want my own account, basically like the PRCA does it. So I go onto the PRCA site, and I see these 3 shows that I want to go into this show,
Mm-hmm.
and I click it, and I want to go into non-pro Tuesday and Thursday, and
Mhm.
I click both of those.
Yep.
Okay, then it's going to go right into the system.
Mhm.
It's going to flag it and say it's an online entry.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will verify that yes, or well, in this case, we'll let Patty verify the fact that I'm gonna come.
Right.
And so then she's gonna go in there and she's gonna click it and say, you're in. Once she clicks it and says that you're in, then on my app, it's gonna show that it's unchangeable unless I go into the
You are already entered.
I'm entered.
You entered.
Okay, but until she changes it, and then I go in and go, oh shit, I had dinner reservations. I better get in the open today. I unclick my non-pro and go into the open. She hasn't reviewed anything.
It would
so I-
disappear and then show up in the open, yes.
Like it. And then when my trainer maybe I'm not sure, would he have to go into my account? Or would
Well,
he
that's
have to pull up multiple accounts?
because we are not taking payment. Our initial thought is to allow anyone must have an account, so we can't just like let anybody off the internet do it. But even if you don't have to verify that it's you, we can't limit to just Eric can only enter Eric, because we're going to have lopers or trainers that are going to try and enter for their clients. I am going to enter my horse for my trainer, maybe. Lots of cases like that. So I could enter my niece, who the NCHA has no idea that we're related, so I'm basically signing somebody else up. But I could do that. So yeah, we would have to allow that for it to make sense.
Currently on the my.equinal.App, where you get your text notifications from, where you sign up for those, you can put any rider in there, add them from the database. So like whenever, like for this show, for PCCHA Derby, for example, I put in a couple of trainers under my account just to spot check that the text notifications were going out when they're supposed to be. So I put in, Brent Erickson and Jesse Lennox. Every time you do a draw and those names are in, I get a text notification. I got nothing to do with it. I can put in any horse.
You just put it on your account?
Yeah, I just put it on my account.
Yeah.
So Jim Van Gelder came to me here and says, hey, I've still got Matt Gaines on mine, but I haven't got Gavin. I'm not getting the text notification. I said, okay, minus Matt plus Gavin, and it pulls in Gavin's data, and now he's getting all the text messages. And then if you've got a horse with Jesse Lennox, obviously you don't want to get a text notification every time Jesse gets a draw, so you put the horse's
Just
name.
put the horse name in.
And then you only get a text notification for when that horse is in the draw. So this is how we vision the pre-entry, because we've got to do it however it's being done right now. If a loper is doing entries, if a trainer is doing entries, if an owner is doing entries, or whoever, that's how we need to have this working. And so now Adan's loper could put all her horses and owners on her app, and now she can do entries for those if that's how she normally does it. And then we'd be able to track that it was her who made that entry for that customer and that horse.
Right. And the verification we do on those my.equinal accounts are basically a valid cell number. Like you sign up, it's going to text you a code, you put the code in, okay, I got a legit cell number. It keeps like robots from, making spam accounts, but we don't know who it is. I mean, for real. But anybody could sneak up and, put some bogus name on a clipboard too, just to be funny. So we have to see how it is and manage it.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens.
And it happens with people marking someone else out and keeping them out of the draw.
Oh, see, well, they can't do that, but yeah, I could.
Well, see, that's what I'm thinking as far as you have to validate an account.
It's through that
If I set
user,
an
yeah.
account, I'm
Yeah.
my final click is gonna be that I understand that I am
Yeah.
responsible for this entry.
Right.
If I want her to go ahead and sign my horse up, I may
Yeah.
give her my login information,
Right.
and then she can get in and do.
Well, she could do it on her own account and add you as a user and the horse as a user and enter you. And then obviously we can see that Kathy put in this entry And it would also prevent duplicates where the owner goes ahead and enters, and then the loper thought she was supposed to enter, and now you got 2 entries for the same rider and horse, but we can see this one was done by the loper, this one was done by the owner, and then you as a check can say, okay, well, I don't need that one, so I'm just putting that one in the draw.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, if I had a unique account, I guess that's what I'm looking for, I have my unique account.
Mhm.
And I give her and her both my login information because they're
Don't.
gonna take care of me. And, don't shake your head.
Don't give them logins. We don't share logins. You know, when we started, we don't share logins. That's how we track who's doing what.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe I used the wrong word.
Right.
Yeah.
You're
My
never gonna guess
password.
Right.
25-digit password.
Yeah.
You're never gonna guess it.
I'm gonna allow these two to be into my account.
Yeah.
So now when they go into my account, they can see that I'm registered in the open and the non-pro. And then they can say, no, I'm not supposed to be in the open or whatever. And that would keep it maybe tied down to where it wouldn't be quite so expansive that anybody could make changes. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean,
That's my
we got to work about all those things. I honestly, until you mentioned it, I really didn't think about someone trying to take someone out of a draw.
Absolutely. It's been done several times when we get close to the world and.
I believe you.
But if
Now that you say it, I absolutely believe you, but faith in people.
If the loper has entered, let's just use a Don. If the loper has entered a Don and that horse, somebody else can't log in and take them out because that's got to go through the loper's account. The loper would have to be the one to take that one out. Now, if you share your login information with whoever else, then they can go in and take you out.
Right.
Right, but it shouldn't your login information be tied to one owner? Kathy Carden's account would only be Kathy Carden's account. A loper can't.
Well, the
have an
account, yes, but not the ability to enter that horse and that rider into a show. So just
Entering your entry
Yeah.
on her account for
Yeah.
your horse.
yeah.
Yeah, because I just put your number,
Yeah.
I just put you
The
in as a
opposite would be
person.
more secure because you have a text said, hey, Judy, somebody
Yeah.
took me out.
Yeah.
Here's my text that shows me in, and she got to draw me back in. So
Yeah.
That may be a way of checking it, though. If you have text message alerts set for your horse or your rider, we could also invoke those text messages when changes on the pre-entry happen. So if I'm signed up for Miss Nita, I'll get a text. Ben Robertson entered your horse in the open on Friday. Okay, yeah, didn't know, but great. But if suddenly Miss Nita was deleted from the 50M, wait, no, I want to show there. Yeah. So we got to work through that stuff, and unfortunately think about the jerk things that people do.
And the text notification part, the other thing that we want to add to that just real quick is not just the draw text or the entry text, but also the ability for a show, anybody that's entered there at that show to be able to send a group text out, hey, so that tomorrow's been cancelled.
Oh, that's right.
Or,
Yes.
This and that. Now, Kathy, you've got the PCCHA one, and if you were here, you knew that the practice pen was open this morning. Accidentally sent one out, but anyway, so now with using this system, you'll have text notification ability to be able to anybody that's entered the show or the information that we have on there, you can send out notifications. Say, hey, we're going to move the open to Pen 2 tomorrow, and everybody associated with that show would see that text.
Right. We can do that in a nice and secure way because you as a show secretary have access to the whole show. We know who has signed up for text notifications of all of the entries in the show that matter because they decided their horse is entered and they want to know about the horse, or they're a rider and they're entered. So we can just make a pool of all those messages and send them out. And that way people don't have to hand out their phone numbers to everybody, and the show secretaries can handle that. So I think that'll work. I'm going to stay here for Q&A as long as everyone wants to, but don't feel obligated if you want to run, need a bathroom break, what have you. But before you leave, feel free to take a baseball cap if you'd like.
And Kathy, obviously, you've been a huge integral part of creating Equinol. Anything like this that we do, obviously there's testing and there's always scenarios that come up later. So that's why we're not going to build it and say, yep, it's done. If we need to tweak it, we'll tweak it. Yeah.
That's good. We need one of those.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think out loud
Yeah.
as far as where we would go with that, and I really like the idea of if once you sign up for signing up online, you're automatically enrolled in the text messages,
Yeah.
and then anything that happens
Yeah.
with that entry, you know, aside from what I do with it,
Yeah.
then I get notification, and that, maybe that's the way to keep people from cheating a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think the pre-entry thing is the biggest thing that we're hearing now. Now that we're up and running and we've kind of got most of the other stuff that you need, the pre-entry thing has been a big thing that people want. And I think right now, yes, shows just like PC, you have the online entry form, but now you've still got to retype all that into Equinol. So we want to cancel that out. We want to have it all directly into the system via the secretary to approve those entries as they go in.
Well, we do our online entries through FormStack, and it's just a cumbersome.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's cumbersome, it's repetitive, and then you put it into another system.
Okay.
But it's still, it gives the customer a little more convenience, causes me more inconvenience,
Yeah.
but it gives them more convenience.
Yeah.
And it's all about them.
So before we get to the point where we're actually checking people out online and charging money, we'd love to get a list of all your pain points there so we make sure we can address them in some way. To answer Jeff's question, we can automatically, and we can set that on a organizational basis when people are checking out online, adding the 4%, 3%, pick the percent convenience fee. Yeah, I mean that honestly, that everybody's doing that these days. It's just the way the world's going.
I mean, you gotta do that because that's what NCHA is going to.
Well, they have to. You know, you
We
can't.
talked about
The only other option is increase all of your fees by 4%, and then it's the people who pay cash or checks that get burned. So
Everybody's going 3%, minimum
yeah,
3%.
minimum 3%.
Yeah.
Three, 3.5.
Depends on which system you're using.
It is, because actually, I think.
Some
Yeah.
of them are up to 4.5.
Square's
Right.
going up on their cost.
Right now, Stripe is my favorite. That may change because this is a quicksand landscape, but they are 2.9% plus 30 cents.
I think we just got one from Stripe just today that it's going up.
Oh, well, I haven't gotten that yet.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
You know, the reason, on your projected stuff, what you're working on now,
Mm-hmm.
without putting them in order, but, you know, you both know me enough that like that online entry thing would be awesome and stuff. What's your projection of when this stuff is gonna be?
Oh, we hate doing that because as a software developer, you think something's gonna take 5 minutes and it ends up taking a month, and you think something is super hard, and when you sit down, you knock it out in an afternoon, so it's really hard. We have, in my head right now, I have about a dozen really minor bugs and just issues that I have to deal with in the next couple of weeks. And then I have one piece, Kathy, I want to preview for you, that is a change to how you advance from a first go to a second go, which will give you a preview and give you options of things like skip this rider, yes, force add them as a duplicate, force join them to the first go to solve some of the issues that we have with.
Intermediates and second goes.
Yeah, some LEEs will run 2 goes for their open, but like their limited will go in the first go and their intermediate will go in the second go, and they are allowed to double enter. And so normally you can't ride the same horse twice with the same rider, but in these cases they can, so we need some overrides. Again, that's why I said limited aged events, especially larger ones, everyone's different. They've got some strange rules, but that's a feature that I'm almost finished with, and that's probably gonna roll out. That said, after that, we're going to probably work on one of those 3 things unless something else comes up as a need that everyone has. And I expect them to take a month or 2-ish.
To your goal.
My goal is my goal is this year. At the very least, I would love to get pre-entry and some sort of testing of the tablets out by the end of the year. Pre-entry with the checkout portion of it is going to be a little bit more challenging, not so much from software, but also from hand-holding and training, helping people get Stripe accounts. It's different. It has to do with their banking. It has to be secure. Please don't get phished and give your password away and have them drain your account. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
And Teresa, I can't remember exactly when you walked in, what part we were at, but one thing that Kathy was the first one to use here was the new pre-entry, where so in the past when you've used it as well, you enter the horse, the rider, the owner, and you enter that class. And then you've got to go to the next class, horse, owner, rider, that class. what we have just launched, and Kathy was just used it here, is where now with a pre-entry version, so say somebody enters horse owner rider, and I want to be in all these classes. You can now go to a screen and enter all those classes from one screen. You don't have to go into each individual class and retype each 3 options. From that screen, once you've entered the 3 and checked all the geldings and limit everything that they want to be in, amateurs, non-pros classes, then you can change one of those parts and then re-enter for the open. So that same horse, but now with an open rider, and so you can do. So I think that has been a time saver. I'm hoping.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 That was really huge, especially with our weekend combined with the LAE.
And that
the
screen.
amateurs and the non-pros where they just cow-killed their horses and showed them everything.
Yeah, and that screen is ultimately, we wanted to launch that first for some secretaries to use, because that will ultimately be the online screen that the user sees, and that's what
Well-
we want to make sure that.
The same general idea, but for you as secretaries, you want to be able to see all the information and go check, 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 check. And you're working on a laptop or a desktop. The users, they're going to use their phones. It's going to be friendly on a phone, and we don't want them to have to swipe around to find all the stuff. So it's going to, but you're processing 100 entries in a day or more. So your workflow needs to be optimized for that. The person doing their entry is going to enter their horse in a couple of classes, and at most they're going to do 4 or 5 entries once a week. So we're going to walk them through it. They may have to do a few more clicks, but we're going to try and walk them through it so that there's less errors, maybe. So, yeah.
Yeah, obviously there's going to be a little training period in there, but I mean, we're willing to help with that side of things and the training side, educational videos. I already have some videos on YouTube. Eric keeps putting up more updates, and I've got to redo that video. So, I do need to redo them, but the basics are still there on YouTube, and that's been, a great tool for new secretaries coming on board to be able to go see, how do I do an entry, or how do I set up an organization, or how do I do a payout? Those individual videos are there to see it, and we want to create more of those. And especially once we get to this pre-entry thing, that'll be for the users as well. Now for the members, that they have, how do I enter a show, or how do I use this app to do an entry for the PCCHA futurity? That's, there'll be a video there to show them how. Do
So
that.
I know they're going to ask you, but at least maybe you can say, hey, there's a video, go check it out.
Yeah.
Maybe, for some of them.
Try it on their own.
Yeah.
Does it work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions across the board? Anything? Details? Okay.
Actually, the program itself, if you guys haven't used it, the workflow is really super easy to follow. And there's just a lot of extra,
Customization.
there's customizations or extra little, like you find the little question mark or you find the exclamation mark. Click on it and you go, ooh, that's cool. But but if you don't know where the extra little cool oohs are, it still flows really nice. You guys did a great job.
Thank you. Well, you've been a big part of it. I mean, you've helped a lot.
Break things.
Well, but
That's a really important job.
That's
That's a really important
That's
job.
what we need, to make it better. But
That's
but
what
it's
you said last week.
well, but even we learned a lot. We learned more from secretaries, first time users, because everybody has different workflows, and we've tried as much as possible to be able to offer different workflow styles using this software, but still not create too many buttons where it's now like, oh my God, what part do I use? And that's a battle that we constantly face. One secretary does it one way and wants one thing, another one wants another thing. And so it's just a matter of trying to figure out, okay, what works best for everybody? How many options do we need to make for this particular task? Or is it better just to help you kind of retrain your workflow to get to that part? Because ultimately there's reasons why it works this way. So that's the biggest part. But I think the other thing is, and I think Kathy will agree, I mean, we try to help as much as possible, and if you got a problem, we're there to try to help it or fix it or add to it to make it better. We wanna make
sometimes
this-
we add to the problem, yes.
Yeah.
We try not to.
Sometimes when he fixes one thing, it can break another thing. Because we just don't have time to test it all. It's like, there's another show today, okay,
Yeah.
fingers crossed.
My favorite
But
statement was from Eric when he said, I never knew I was going to know this much about being a show secretary.
yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and obviously, the cutting has been the biggest part, but the rope horse futurities have always been a big part as well. And Ashley, you've been a part of that with the rope horse side, and Lindsay. I mean, we're now doing all the ARHFA ropings, and they use it for 6 shows now. It'll be 7 next year. And we've learned a lot from how they do things, you know, and there's things that we've applied to this for the cutting, what we've learned there, and vice versa. So ultimately this software, it can do, we're fixing to do some cowhorse shows later this month and next month, and they're interested in it. So we're trying, it's all doable, and it's just a matter of what works best for everybody. And, you know, and I think the biggest thing is having the connectivity from where ultimately, I mean, Linda in the office or Ashley in the office could have a log into your show if there's an issue with a report or something, and get on there with you and say, hey, here's where the issue is, or, you know, you need to do this different. And where there's communication with everybody within the association to help speed up the results, make the results more accurate. You know, we're doing everything we can to get away from that scribble on the sign-up sheet to hopefully online entries that come from registered horses with AQHA numbers on them. So there's no mistaking that. And that's, there's a training period there, there's a learning curve there, but I think ultimately the more accurate data in, more accurate data out.
I think so. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do in NCHA, and work with them to help make their job easier in the office, you know, with what you guys are sending in. Yeah. But we're always open, you know, you have suggestions. And anybody here that, you know, you're interested, you want to do a deep dive, I mean, I have done that with some of you. You know, feel free to leave us a number. We'll set up a Zoom time. We can screen share. I mean, that's how we've done a lot of demos. We've got a secretary doing a show next week that's never used it. I've done a demo with her, and we're going to support her during that first day, and, you know, and do that. So we're here to help you. If you're interested in it and want to use it, you know, we'd love to help you guys and get on board with it. And if you have suggestions, I mean, we're always open.
Just remember, it's not the first day that they're gonna need your help, it's gonna be the last day.
Oh, yes. Yes, it's Sunday afternoon during checkout.
100%. No, that's
100%,
what,
yes.
you know, but I think we've always been reachable. I mean,
Or the Monday after. Or the Monday after.
Yeah, and even days after. But the one thing that we are pretty proud of is, you know, we've got about a 98% retention rate of secretaries that have onboarded, that have stuck with it. They love it, and they've stuck with it. There's others that, you know, there's been some issues here or there or whatever, for whatever reason haven't. We want to try to do whatever we can to, you know, to make it a good experience for everybody. So that's what we're here for. Speech over.
Yeah.